holding the right hand of my husband's corpse. I realized the man in the coffin was his twin brother, and the man nearby in a scholar's robe, embracing and comforting his sister-in-law, was my supposedly dead husband. I was shocked that, for the sake of love, he would willingly give up his title and status. Little did I know, he had planned everything, waiting to inherit both branches, seizing both women and power. What a pity. But even the best laid plans can fail. He didn't know I was already 2 months pregnant. Since he didn't want his title and status, then he could enjoy the life of a lesser branch. I had joyfully left the palace, ready to tell my husband about my pregnancy, only to see the estate draped in white mourning cloth. The steward was in tears, stumbling toward my palanquin. My lady. The heir has passed away. My world spun. My maid, Shu, quickly supported my arm. Your Highness, please be careful. I couldn't care about anything else, and stumbled into the mansion. The mourning hall was set up in the ancestral shrine. The entire estate was shrouded in grief. A pitch-black coffin rested in the center, surrounded by white candles and mourning flowers. The man lying inside the coffin was shockingly the same man who smiled and bid me farewell this morning. Husband, I cried out and threw myself at the coffin, unable to believe it. I picked up his right hand, wanting to feel his warmth one last time, but I instantly froze. The calluses on this hand were clearly on the fingertips. Those are left from holding a pen, but my husband was a master swordsman. His calluses were on his palms. My mind felt as if struck by lightning. I turned around in disbelief. That man in the scholar's robe, though his face was filled with grief, did not forget to pull Bai Euro into his arms to console her. That was actually my husband, Pei Jin, heir of the Marquis, and the one lying in the coffin. Supposedly Pei Jin was actually his twin brother, Pei Yu. Before I could even process why he would do this, I saw him kneel before my parents-in-law. Father, mother, your son is useless. Today, while going to Guanyuan Temple to offer incense, we encountered bandits on our way back. To save me and Euro, brother was heavily wounded by them. Fortunately, General Zhang was returning to the city, and he saved our lives. But before we could get him to a doctor, brother succumbed to his injuries. Brother has left no heir. I cannot let his bloodline end. I am willing to inherit both branches, to preserve brother's lineage. I beg father and mother for your blessing. He finished and touched his head to the ground, putting on the perfect act of a devoted younger brother. So that's how it is. Oh, Pei Jin, what a clever scheme you've hatched. As expected, hearing him say this, my mother-in-law, who had been weeping bitterly, was the first to stop crying. She exchanged a glance with my grieving father-in-law. Showing signs of persuasion, he shuffled forward on his knees, hugged my mother-in-law's legs, and said solemnly, please, mother, grant my request. My mother-in-law froze, her eyes full of disbelief. You. Oh, my son. What a bitter fate you have. She burst into agonizing tears. Then, she pointed resentfully at Bai Euro and cursed. It's all because of you, you jinx. Give me back my son's life. If you hadn't insisted on offering incense, and making both brothers escort you, how could my son have died? Bai Euro. You wretched woman. I never should have brought you into this house. Mother. It's not Euro's fault. Brother and I went willingly. Pei Jin immediately stood up, and pulled the sobbing Bai Euro into his arms. Seeing this, my mother-in-law grew even more furious. She stumbled, about to faint. Fortunately, my father-in-law hurried forward, and caught her in his arms. You must restrain your grief. Do not ruin your health. Yu's words also make sense. He comforted her, holding back his own sorrow. Seeing her slowly calm down, though her face was covered in tears, she was clearly considering the possibility. I scoffed coldly in my heart. I stood up and said, as for my husband's heir, there's no need for you to worry, brother-in-law. I haven't told father and mother yet, but I am carrying my husband's child. I am already 2 months pregnant. As my words fell, the room fell silent. My father-in-law looked in disbelief. Then his expression turned to ecstatic joy. My mother-in-law looked at the stunned Pei Yu. He looked utterly shocked and bewildered. Such a major matter. Why didn't you inform the family sooner, sister-in-law? I didn't know earlier either. It was today, while dining with the Empress at the palace. I felt nauseous from the smell of fish. Her Majesty summoned the imperial physician, and only then did I learn I was 2 months pregnant. I meant to tell my husband the good news upon returning, but who would have thought? As I spoke, I couldn't help but cry again. Then, how can you guarantee, sister-in-law, that you are carrying a boy? Pei Yu still looked unwilling to concede. I immediately wiped my tears, and replied proudly, even if I give birth to a daughter, I can ask my uncle, the emperor, to pass the title to her. At worst, in the future, I will just find a live-in husband for her. Seeing that I brought up the emperor, my in-laws didn't dare to object. His face turned even uglier. My mother-in-law began scolding by Euro again. Her weeping led him to plead for her, which only made my mother-in-law angrier. I used protecting my pregnancy as an excuse, and didn't even stay to mourn for Pei Jin. After returning to my own Hengwu courtyard, my maid Shu helped me rest, just as she tried to console me, saying, "You must think of the child." She noticed I didn't look sad at all. She couldn't help but ask, "You usually care so much for the consort. Now that he's gone, why aren't you grieving?" I couldn't help but laugh. My dear Shu, for such a good thing, I should be laughing. Shu looked even more confused. I sneered. Since someone is willing to do anything to be with his true love, even giving up his title and status, then we should grant his wish. She gasped in shock. "Your Highness, are you saying the one who died wasn't the consort, but the second young master?" "Yes. The one who died wasn't Pei Jin. It was Pei Yu. Although they look identical, and even swapped clothes, I recognized him at first glance. After all, the calluses on his right hand are on the fingertips, formed from years of holding a pen. They are twin brothers. One scholar, one warrior. The younger brother is the scholar. I guess mother-in-law recognized him too. That's why she was so furious. That by Euro, daughter of a petty 8th rank official. If mother-in-law hadn't been soft-hearted, pitying her for losing her mother so young, and taking her into the estate, none of this would have happened. She seduced both sons, one lost his life, the other gave up his title. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but scoff. I wondered how he had the nerve to abandon wealth and glory for true love. Turns out he was scheming to inherit both branches. Too bad for him. He didn't calculate that I was pregnant. Today, the four of us were supposed to go offer incense together, because Bai Euro said she wanted to go to Guanyuan Temple to pray for a child. Right before we left, a eunuch arrived from the palace. The empress summoned me for a talk. Pei Jin should have accompanied me to the palace, but after seeing Bai Euro's reluctant expression, he told me, "Since Her Majesty summoned you, you should go to the palace alone. I will go offer incense with brother and cousin, and also pray to Buddha to grant us a son soon." So, the three of them went. I had never noticed before. Even though Bai Euro has been married to his brother for 2 years, he never started calling her sister-in-law. He always just called her cousin. In the past, he made excuses, claiming it was just a cousin's care. Looking back now, everything was dripping with ambiguity, because the empress kept me for lunch, and served my favorite braised fish. I got nauseous from the smell of it. Her Majesty summoned the royal doctor, who discovered I was 2 months pregnant. I meant to give him a surprise when I got back. I never expected to receive his surprise first. "I am Lin Joey, Commandery Princess Jiayang, legitimate daughter of the Grand Princess, and the Emperor's most favored niece. I am also the nominal wife of the heir of Yongning Marquis Estate. Pei Jin, the eldest legitimate son, and Pei Yu, the second son, are twins. Pei Jin prefers martial arts, while Pei Yu prefers literature. Both loved their little cousin, Bai Euro, who was raised in the estate. Bai Euro is the daughter of the Marchioness's late concubine-born sister. Pitying her for losing her mother so young, and her father remarrying, the Marchioness took her in. Little did she expect she would bewitch both of her sons. My uncle, the Emperor, dotes on me more than his own princesses. When a foreign state requested a princess for marriage, my uncle had no daughters of suitable age. So, some set their sights on me. When uncle saw the petition to grant me a princess title for the political marriage, he immediately betrothed me to the heir of Yongning, using this to block the foreign marriage proposal. Pei Jin is handsome and elegant, and among the capital's elite circles, he is an outstanding young man. Naturally, I had no complaints. After all, what young girl doesn't dream of love? Mostly, it was to escape the foreign marriage. But I never checked if he already had a lover. He treated me with the utmost respect. Whenever he returned from errands, he brought me pastries and preserves to make me happy. I was full of confidence back then, thinking that as Lin Joey, my status was nobler than an ordinary princess, and I was known as the top beauty in the capital. I never imagined my husband wouldn't love me. As for Bai Euro, I had looked into her background. Just the daughter of an 8th rank official. She was never worth my concern. If she wasn't Pei Jin's cousin, she wouldn't even be fit to speak to me. Moreover, 3 months after our marriage, she married Pei Yu. After marriage, I also noticed that Pei Jin was always a bit gentler to Bai Euro. When bringing me pastries and preserves, he never forgot her share. Once, I couldn't help but tease, "You are exceptionally good to little sister Euro." His eyes flashed with a momentary panic, but then he tapped my nose and said intimately, "Second brother, cousin, and I grew up together. I dote on her like a real sister. You, as a sister-in-law, are actually jealous of your sister-in-law?" I rolled my eyes at him and didn't take it to heart, but I never thought that he would now give up his title and status All for true love. Oh, no. He still wanted it. Inheriting both branches. Such a beautiful thought. He could continue enjoying his status as heir, while openly staying with his white moonlight. I might even have to thank him for giving me a child. What a perfect plan. Sigh. What a pity. Thinking back now. My mother-in-law must hate Euro to the core. Nothing happened that night. I got up a bit late the next day. Yesterday's emotions were too turbulent, and I looked exhausted. I used my pregnancy as an excuse, and didn't go mourn for Pei Jean. After a light breakfast, I noticed Shu hesitating to speak. What is it? I asked. Shu hesitated again, then gritted her teeth, and said indignantly, last night, Tingy Pavilion requested water 3 times. My heart ached. Then I sneered. They really couldn't wait, could they? Shu continued. This morning, the madam was furious, and scolded the second young master and his wife severely. Since family scandals shouldn't be made public, she used the excuse of failing to protect his brother, to make the second young master mourn the heir, and ordered his wife to kneel in the ancestral shrine for 3 days. The second young master tried to plead for her, but the madam pointed at him and yelled, "Are you worthy of your dead brother?" leaving him speechless. Hearing this made me even more chilled, and I felt bad for Pei. I just wonder if he knew that his good brother slept with his wife 3 times, on their own bed, on the very day he died. Would he be so angry he'd burst out of his coffin and come back to life? Shu, let's go. We should also go offer incense to the heir. Dressed in mourning clothes, I led the way to the mourning hall. Entering the hall, I lit 3 sticks of incense and placed them in the burner, then turned to look at the kneeling Pei. The moment his eyes met mine, he guiltily lowered his head. I mocked him. Second brother and sister-in-law truly share a deep bond. It's just a pity if your eldest brother's spirit is watching, seeing the brother and sister-in-law he died to save, being so intimate before his coffin. I wonder how he would feel. Pei looked up at me in shock. Joey, listen to me. How dare you? Pei, who gave you the right to call me by my given name? I scolded sharply. Your Highness, sister-in-law, please listen to me. He scrambled to explain. No need for explanations. Do you dare to stand before the heir and say you have never wronged him? I stared at him coldly. He didn't dare meet my gaze, and finally lowered his head in silence. Since you don't respect us as your elder brother and sister-in-law, from now on, our 2 branches have nothing to do with each other. And please, do not casually appear before me. I scoffed coldly, and left. Back in Hengwu courtyard, thinking of Pei Yu's ashamed and regretful face, I felt so good I wanted to laugh out loud, but I had to maintain a heartbroken facade. 7 days passed like this, and Pei Jean was buried. From then on, I truly became a widow. But I didn't care. I focused on nurturing my pregnancy, even if I didn't look for trouble. Euro kept coming to show off to me, under the guise of comforting me. She'd subtly flaunt her affection every few days. She knew Pei Jean gave up his identity to play Pei for her. Amidst her smugness, she couldn't help but want to boast in front of me. She often vaguely mentioned their childhood bond, and how good both cousins were to her. She was afraid I knew, but also afraid I didn't, when she couldn't help but mention again how considerate Pei was last night. I didn't even bat an eyelid, and coldly replied, "It's good that second brother and you are affectionate. While I don't expect him to mourn the consort, it would be shameful for the estate if you get pregnant during the mourning period. If your prayers at Wan Yuan Temple actually come true, and the consort knows in the underworld, I wonder how he would feel." Euro's face turned pale, and she stumbled away awkwardly. Watching her retreat, I couldn't hold back my mockery. If she really got pregnant during mourning, I wonder if Pei would strangle her in her dreams. Shu, pass down my order. From now on, cancel all previous subsidies given to the second branch. Inform the accounting room. Any future expenses from the second branch, exceeding 50 taels from the public funds, will require my tally. Since she has the leisure to show off to me, it seems she's eating too well. The next day, the meals sent to Tingy Pavilion went from 4 cold dishes, 4 hot dishes, and 2 soups, to just 2 cold and 2 hot vegetarian dishes. Pei Yu's face darkened when he saw the food on the table. What's going on? How dare the main kitchen cut my rations? Euro wiped her tears pitifully beside him. The kitchen servants wouldn't dare. It must be the princess's orders. But what did I do wrong? To offend sister-in-law? That she would punish you like this? I'm going to ask her what kind of princess authority she's trying to flaunt. Pei slammed his chopsticks down and headed straight for Hengwu courtyard, but my maid stopped him at the gate. "Second young master," my princess said, "our status is not what it used to be. Please wait a moment. I will announce you first." Pei froze, then realized his situation. As a brother-in-law, barging into a widow's courtyard would look terrible. He had to wait at the gate for the maid's announcement. Euro hurried over, just in time to see the returning maid. My princess invites you in, second young master. May I ask why sister-in-law cut the rations for the third branch? Entering the room, he saw me reclining on a soft couch. Without even bowing, he demanded an answer. Cut? Second brother must be mistaken. Our first branch is the legitimate eldest. According to ancestral rules, we inherit 70% of the estate's wealth. The remaining 30% is divided among the other brothers. Before, your branch's expenses were equal to ours, because my husband cared for you, since you were his twin brother. So he had me provide an extra subsidy. Now, I'm just taking back the subsidy. We're just following the rules now. I glanced at him coldly, and answered nonchalantly. Peyu froze. He remembered this was true, and didn't know how to argue. Euro, crying, chimed in. But how did I offend you, sister-in-law? That you took back the subsidy? I apologize to you. Please don't make things difficult for my husband. Hearing her still trying to subtly insult me, a coldness flashed in my eyes. Don't misunderstand, sister-in-law. I'm just following the rules. How could you say you offended me? If I'm unhappy, it's only because I'm heartbroken for my late husband. I looked into her eyes, a mocking smile on my lips. The two felt awkwardly embarrassed, and hastily made an excuse to leave. I stroked my lower abdomen, though not yet showing. This little life gave me motivation, giving me a reason to fight. Any news on what I asked you to investigate? To answer your highness, it's all arranged. You'll see a good show tomorrow. Shu replied. The next morning, I heard a commotion outside early on. Before I could ask, Shu had already begun. A girl arrived at the estate gates. Her name is Meyer, a high-class courtesan from Hongxiu brothel. She says she's carrying the second young master's child. She bought her own freedom to seek refuge with him. The madam has already called her to the main hall. Oh, this is a good show. We can't miss this. Looking intrigued, I took my maids to the main hall. My mother-in-law sat at the head of the hall. A young woman knelt before her. Peyu and Euro stood nearby. Euro's eyes were red, and she looked unsteady, as if she had suffered a great blow. While Peyu supported her, his eyes kept looking Meyer up and down. Greetings, mother. After I bowed, my mother-in-law quickly asked me to sit. Why did you come to the main hall? You're still pregnant. You've suffered enough lately. Don't worry about those rules. Taking good care of your health is what matters. She held my hand, looking apologetic and caring. I missed you, mother. And I need to report something. I have cancelled the extra subsidy given to second brother and his wife. My mother-in-law paused, then quickly understood. Euro and Peyu must have offended me. You make the decisions. Before, you loved them as older siblings. Now, it's only right to follow the rules. This is. I pretended to just notice Meyer kneeling there. Sigh. Such a sin. This woman claims to be an acquaintance of your second brother. Now she's pregnant with his child, and came directly to our door. Oh, already pregnant with second brother's child? I feigned surprise. Looking at Meyer, I asked softly. Miss, how far along are you? Meyer knelt submissively. Her voice was soft but clear. To answer your highness, the child is almost 2 months along. Hearing this, Euro swayed, almost fainting. Peyu quickly caught her in his arms. Her face was full of panic. Euro looked up, her eyes welling with tears as she looked at Peyu. Her eyes were filled with disbelief, and Peiyu's face was a blank canvas. He had no idea if the real Peyu actually had ties with this Meyer in private, much less whether this child was truly Peiyu's. What they feared most right now was blowing their cover in front of me. So even though he was full of doubt, he didn't dare ask too much. For a moment, their eyes darted around, full of panic. Mother-in-law was shrewd. She saw right through the situation at a glance. She instantly realized that the child in Meyer's womb was very likely her real second son, Peiyu's only bloodline. Peyu was dead. If this child were lost, the second branch would truly have no heir. At that moment, she cast aside her anger, slammed the table, and said grimly, since she carries the Marquis estate's bloodline, we cannot let our flesh and blood wander outside. Take her as your concubine. But since we are still in mourning, we cannot have a grand ceremony. Just take her to your Tinggi pavilion, and settle her in nicely. Euro was entirely unwilling, but mother-in-law had made the final decision. As a daughter-in-law, what could she do? What's more, Peiyu's face hadn't shown a shred of reluctance. There was even a hint of undetectable curiosity. This made her resentment and grievance even stronger, but she could only grit her teeth and swallow it. From then on, Tinggi pavilion became completely lively. Although Meyer came from the Hongxiu brothel, she was highly manipulative. Not only was she beautiful, she was also incredibly observant and sweet-talking. Every day, facing Pei Yu, she put on a sorrowful and deeply affectionate act. She would detail her memories of her beautiful times with Pei Yu. The details she mentioned? Like Pei Yu's love for osmanthus cake, how he pursed his lips when writing, or even how his cuffs always had a tiny embroidered orchid, were absolutely flawless. Hearing these details, Pei Yu grew increasingly suspicious. Yet he felt these actions were exactly like his romantic younger brother's style. He couldn't tell if she was telling the truth or not. Furthermore, Meyer was so gentle and submissive. Compared to Bayuro's spoiled arrogance, it was a completely different kind of charm. For a moment, he was genuinely moved. While playing along, he couldn't help but care for Meyer a bit more. Meyer's schemes left Bayuro miles behind. In just a few days, she had Pei Yu wrapped around her finger. He frequently stayed over in her room. Seeing this situation, Bayuro was naturally heartbroken. She washed her face with tears every day, weeping in front of Pei Yu, and pouring out her grievances. Unable to shake her off, Pei Yu had to turn around and coax her. As a result, he was caught trying to please both sides. But this only deepened the conflict in Tingyi Pavilion. One day, I was sitting in the warm pavilion of Ruijin Hall, playing with a mutton-fat jade Rui scepter. A faint smile played on my lips. The silver thread charcoal burned in the pavilion, making it warm and cozy. The cold wind outside couldn't get in at all. A young maid was peeling pine nuts for me. The atmosphere was relaxing. Your Highness, Tingyi Pavilion has been quite lively lately. Shu came in carrying a cup of hot tea, and reported with a smile, Bayuro and concubine Meyer are fighting fiercely every day. Yesterday, concubine Meyer merely wore a pink dress. Bayuro accused her of wearing bright colors during mourning, calling it treasonous. She forced the servants to cut the dress to pieces. The two started arguing right then and there. They shattered several vases in Tingyi Pavilion. I smiled faintly, my fingertips caressing the patterns on the jade Rui. How amusing. It seems second sister-in-law has lost her patience. Your Highness. The second young madam went to pay respects to the madam again. Another young maid softly reported. From the looks of it, she wants the madam to back her up and punish concubine Meyer. I absent-mindedly stroked the jade Rui and said lightly, oh, she knows how to find a patron. However, mother-in-law won't side with her. After all, what concubine Meyer is carrying is recognized by mother-in-law as the second young master's only bloodline. Bayuro's place in mother-in-law's heart was already lost because of Pei Yu's death. Now that Meyer is pregnant, mother-in-law will naturally favor Meyer. Bayuro going to mother-in-law to complain is just asking for a snub. As expected, it didn't take long before the maid who went to spy on the main hall rushed back to report. Your Highness, you guessed right. She cried and complained to the madam, saying concubine Meyer is arrogant from being favored and disrespects her as the main wife. As a result, she was harshly scolded by the madam. The madam said she can't tolerate a concubine's child and lacks the grace of a main wife. She even told her to go back and reflect on her actions. She returned to Tingyi Pavilion with red eyes. She must be furious inside. Hearing this, my smile deepened. Bayuro has always been spoiled. When has she ever suffered such a grievance? Being reprimanded by mother-in-law. She definitely won't let it go. I bet she won't last 3 days before finding a chance to get back at Meyer. Just as I expected, early on the third day, when Shu came in holding freshly picked magnolia flowers, I was by the window embroidering tiger head shoes for my baby. The silver needle wove through the red silk, embroidering a lifelike tiger head. Your Highness, there's an uproar over at Tingyi Pavilion. Shu's voice carried a hint of urgency and an undetectable trace of excitement. The silver needle in my hand paused. I looked up and asked, oh, what happened? The second young madam used the excuse that concubine Meyer lacks manners this morning and made her kneel on the flagstones in Tingyi Pavilion to teach her the rules. She claimed she was teaching her how to serve ink and brush. She ended up kneeling for 2 whole hours. Shu reported. It rained yesterday, so the flagstones are still damp and cold. Concubine Meyer is pregnant. How could she endure such torment? I heard that by the end, she couldn't even stand up. I slowly bit off the gold thread and placed the half-embroidered tiger shoe aside. I said calmly, second sister-in-law is quite impatient. This concubine has only been here a few days, and she's already eager to flex her authority as the main wife. But she forgot. Concubine Meyer is carrying a child. Mother-in-law treats her like a treasure. Tormenting her like this, she's going to burn herself. Before my words even fell, a flurry of hurried footsteps echoed outside, along with the panicked shouts of maids. Mother-in-law's servant, Nanny Lu, rushed in frantically. Her face was pale. She said anxiously, this is bad. Madam Heir, concubine Meyer is bleeding. The madam asks you to come over immediately. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. I had expected this, but on the surface, I pretended to be shocked. How could this happen? Quick, help me over there. Without delay, I held Shurshu's hand and hurried towards Tingyi Pavilion. Just as we reached the courtyard gate, I smelled a faint scent of blood. The courtyard was in total chaos. The servants were scrambling around, not even having time to clean up the broken porcelain on the floor. Entering Meyer's room, I saw Meyer with a deathly pale face, curled up on the brocade-covered couch. Her brows were tightly knit, her forehead covered in cold sweat. On the plain mattress beneath her, a large, glaring patch of crimson had spread. It was a shocking sight. Pei Yu stood by the folding screen. His face was livid. He clenched his fists until they cracked. The heartache in his eyes was almost overflowing. This didn't look like an act. After all, if this child were lost, the second branch would truly have no heir. And he, Pei Yu, would lose a crucial crutch. My grandchild. Mother-in-law stumbled into the room. She grabbed Meyer's hand and reached with trembling hands to touch her sweaty forehead. Seeing that glaring patch of crimson, her tears instantly fell. She turned her head to look at the bystander, a pale-faced Bayuro. She raised her hand and delivered a resounding slap. Slap. With that sound, the slap echoed sharply in the quiet room. Even the thrush under the corridor was startled into fluttering its wings and flying away. Bayuro was stunned by the slap. The pearl hairpin at her temple smashed, fell to the ground, and snapped into 3 pieces. Pearls scattered all over the floor. Mother. Bayuro held her cheek. Her eyes filled with disbelief. She was on the verge of weeping. I just wanted to teach her the rules. Only what? Mother-in-law pointed at her nose, hand trembling. She was shaking with pure rage. Do you think I don't know what you're scheming? Bayuro, you are so vicious. She is carrying Yuer's flesh and blood, the root of our marquis estate. How dare you be so ruthless to her? Do you want the second branch to die out? Pei Yu also stepped forward. The veins on his forehead throbbed. The hand gripping Bayuro's wrist almost crushed her bones. His eyes were filled with disappointment and rage. You have disappointed me too much. You knew she was pregnant. How could you mistreat her so cruelly? He forcefully swallowed the rest of his sentence. If this child were lost, his scheme to use the second branch's identity to seize the family fortune would face another major obstacle. His neck turned bright red from suppressed anger. It terrified Bayuro into shivering and crying. She repeatedly defended herself. Husband, I really just wanted to establish the rules. I didn't know she would bleed. How could mother-in-law listen to her excuses? She slammed her teacup heavily onto the table. The Biluakan tea splashed out, soaking half of the Suzhou embroidery table runner. She stood up, her face livid, and said grimly, "Pass down my order. From today onwards, concubine Meyer is elevated to noble concubine. Her monthly allowance is doubled. Have the main kitchen stew tonics and deliver them to her daily, so she can recuperate well. As for Lady Bai," she coldly swept her gaze over Bayuro's pale face, her eyes full of disgust. "You are grounded for 3 months, and must copy the lessons for women 100 times. Without my order, you are not to step half a pace out of Tingyi Pavilion." Bayuro slumped to the ground, her face covered in tears, but she dared not say another word. I heard that after Bayuro was grounded, she returned to her room and smashed an entire set of Celadone teaware. The flying porcelain shards scratched the back of Pei Yu's hand when he came to console her, causing it to bleed profusely. Pei Yu was already frustrated, and after this incident, he was burning with anger. He threw off her hand and stormed off. That very night, he stayed in Meyer's room, watching over her without leaving her side. When Shurshu recounted these events to me, I was looking through the estate's account books under the lamp. I made marks on the ledger with a red brush, circling and noting all the unreasonable expenses. "Guess what, Your Highness?" Shurshu held back a laugh, while massaging my shoulders. "Today, before dawn even broke, someone tried to sneak into the heir's old study in the dark. He was stopped by the old servant women. We posted outside. Guess who it was?" I glanced up at her and said lightly, "Other than Pei Yu? Who else could it be?" Pei Jin was used to a life of luxury, now that the third branch's rations were reduced. If he even wanted to spend a few dozen taels of silver, he had to present my tally. How could he endure such a life? He definitely wanted to go to Pei Jin's old study, to retrieve his hidden private stash, to subsidize Bayuro, and make his own life more comfortable. "Your Highness predicts things like a god," Shurshu said with a smile. It was indeed the second young master. After being stopped by the servants, he still pretended to be calm, saying he only wanted to look at his brother's belongings. But the servants used the excuse that the heir's belongings must be inspected by the Madame Heir, and turned him away. He was so angry his face turned green. But there was nothing he could do. I burst out, laughing, and set my red brush aside. It seems his little treasury is hidden in the study. Since he is so anxious, then I'll just keep this private stash for him. Early the next morning, I took Shu and a few capable maids straight to Pei Jin's old study. I had already changed the lock on the study door. I took out the key, opened the door, and said grimly, "Search. Search carefully. Do not miss a single corner." The 4 main maids were all quick and efficient. They immediately split up and began rummaging through chests and cabinets, the books on the shelves, the brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones on the desk. Even the gaps in the table legs were all thoroughly checked. Before long, a maid found something on the top shelf, hidden inside a copy of Jingguan Jingyao. It was a small red sandalwood box. Upon opening it, inside lay banknotes worth 50,000 taels of silver, deeds for 3 storefront properties, and 200 acres of fertile land, all under Pei Jin's name. Looking at these things, my face broke into a wide smile, but I sneered inwardly. Pei Jin had hidden this quite deeply. This private stash of money must have taken years to accumulate. Now, it all benefits me and my unborn child. Holding the red sandalwood box, I went personally to the main house to pay respects to mother-in-law. Coincidentally, Pei Yu and Bai Euro were also there. Since Bai Euro was grounded, she must have been specially summoned by mother-in-law. However, she still had unfaded tear tracks on her face, looking incredibly pitiful. "Joey, what brings you here today? And what's with the box?" Mother-in-law saw me walking in with a smile, and couldn't help but ask. There was a hint of confusion in her eyes. "Mother, you don't know." I feigned pleasant surprise, placing the red sandalwood box on the table. Today, I was sorting through the heir's belongings, so our unborn child could have some keepsakes. And inside a hidden compartment of a book in the study, I found a private stash the heir left for the child. He must have been saving it for the child all along, but simply didn't have time to tell me. As I spoke, my face was filled with a sweet smile, as if I had truly found my husband's loving gift for our child. I completely ignored the 3 people across from me, Pei Yu, Bai Euro, and mother-in-law. After hearing this news, their faces turned extremely ugly. Those 50,000 taels of silver, shops, and land were originally Pei Jin's private stash, but now they had become the heir's inheritance left for his child. They didn't even have room to argue. After all, it was found in Pei Jin's study, and registered under Pei Jin's name. Since they belong to Jiner, naturally, they are meant for your unborn child. Mother-in-law gave 2 dry laughs. Her smile was somewhat forced, but she still quickly smiled to reassure me. "Keep them safe for him. This is Jiner's loving intention." "Then I thank you, mother." I curtsied, smiling with pure sincerity. "I will definitely keep them safe for my unborn child. After all, this is a gift from his late father, a token of his love. I cannot fail the heir's painstaking efforts." As my words fell, Pei Yu's face turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Bai Euro bit her lip, her eyes filled with resentment and malice, but she dared not show it. She could only grip her handkerchief tightly. Back in Hengwu courtyard, I took the hot tea Shu handed me, took a sip, and said nonchalantly, "Oh, right. Tomorrow, clean up the west courtyard. Sweep and clean it thoroughly, and change it to fresh bedding." Say that out of sympathy for concubine Meyer's miscarriage, and because Tingyi Pavilion is too noisy and crowded, I'm having her move to the west courtyard alone to recuperate. Assign 2 attentive maids to serve her. Shu's eyes lit up. She immediately understood my intent, and replied with a smile, "This servant will arrange it right away." Putting Meyer in the west courtyard, far away from Tingyi Pavilion, not only makes me look like a caring legitimate sister-in-law, but also completely separates Bai Euro and Meyer, making it impossible for them to fight even if they wanted to. More importantly, it forces Pei Yu to run between 2 places, running him ragged. Sure enough, after this news reached Tingyi Pavilion, Bai Euro threw another tantrum. She smashed another batch of porcelain in her room, and even knocked a hole in the window with a vase, and Pei Yu was caught in a dilemma. On one side was the grounded Bai Euro, on the other was the newly elevated noble concubine Meyer. Now settled separately, he shuttled daily between Tingyi Pavilion and the west courtyard, so busy his feet barely touched the ground. The weariness on his face grew heavier by the day. He no longer had the composure from when he first impersonated Pei Yu. As the days passed by, my belly grew larger. Moving around gradually became inconvenient. Nowadays, I mostly reclined on the soft couch, listening to young maids tell me amusing gossip from the estate, while nurturing my pregnancy. Watching Pei Jin running himself ragged in the estate was quite an entertaining pastime. One day, as I was reclining on the soft couch, eating fresh grapes, Sherhua ran in holding up her skirt. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, and she reported breathlessly, Your Highness. There's a huge commotion at the stables. A huge scene. I casually placed the grape peel in my hand onto the jade dish, tracing the brocade of the couch with my fingertips. I said calmly, "Oh, is it the heir's horse, Dark Cloud stepping on snow?" Pei Jean had a beloved, fiery steed, named Dark Cloud stepping on snow. It was pitch black all over, with only its four hooves being snow white. He had tamed it himself at the age of 16. It had an extremely fierce temper. Besides Pei Jean, no one else could even get close to it. Even Pei Yu had been kicked and injured by it before. Exactly. Sherhua stomped her foot, gesturing excitedly. Who knows what got into that beast today? But the moment it saw the second young master, it went crazy. It reared up on its hooves trying to kick him, for stable hands couldn't even hold the reins. A huge piece of the second young master's robe was torn off. His hair is all messed up. And now he's throwing a fit by the stables, cursing at all the stable hands. I burst out, laughing, almost spitting out the grape in my mouth. It startled the parrot in the corridor into flapping its wings and squawking non-stop. This Dark Cloud stepping on snow is highly intelligent and extremely loyal to its master. Even if Pei Jean had assumed Pei Yu's identity and changed his clothes and appearance, his scent and aura couldn't fool this fiery steed. Now, having his cover blown in public by his own mount is entirely his own fault. Let's go take a look. My interest was piqued. Supported by Shershu's hand, I slowly stood up and headed in the direction of the stables. Turning past the winding corridor, I could hear the horses neighing tearing through the air from afar. The sound was furious and violent, unmistakably the cry of Dark Cloud stepping on snow. Getting closer, I saw Dark Cloud stepping on snow, chained to a hitching post with several heavy iron chains. Its mane stood on end, covered in bits of grass. Its front hooves continuously pawed at the ground, scratching several white marks into the flagstones. Its eyes were full of hostility, glaring aggressively at the nearby Pei Yu. Several stable hands frantically pulled on the reins. Their faces were filled with panic. Who knows what's wrong with this beast today? It went crazy the moment it saw you. It's never like this usually. Pei Yu stood 10 paces away. The hem of his white brocade robe was heavily torn, exposing the cyan inner lining. His hair was disheveled from dodging the hooves, and there was a shallow scratch on his forehead. His face looked uglier than horse dung. He had gripped his riding crop so hard it snapped in two. He threw it onto the ground. "Second brother, what sort of play is this?" Supporting my waist, I slowly approached, a hint of mockery in my tone. "Are you trying to tame horses like your older brother? It's just that Dark Cloud stepping on snow has a fierce temper. When your brother tamed it, it took him quite a lot of effort. Second brother is a delicate scholar. Be careful not to hurt your bones." Supporting my lower back, I slowly approached, my tone carrying a hint of mockery. Seeing me arrive, the anger on Pei Yu's face slightly faded, though a trace of hostility remained. He forced a smile and said, "Thank you for your concern, sister-in-law. This beast's wild nature is hard to tame. Perhaps it was startled today, which is why it's acting like this." Before he could finish his words, Dark Cloud stepping on snow suddenly reared up, letting out a deafening neigh. Its massive hoof narrowly grazed past his ear, kicking up a strong gust of wind. It scared him into stumbling back several steps, nearly falling over. I looked at the beast's large, glaring eyes, staring straight at Pei Jean, filled with disdain and fury. I suddenly recalled a proverb from Western merchants. A legendary steed can distinguish the true from the false. It seems Dark Cloud stepping on snow also saw through Pei Jin's hypocrisy and deceit, which is why it treated him this way. "If you ask me, animals are far more honest than people," I said calmly, taking a handful of alfalfa from Sherhua. I slowly walked up to Dark Cloud stepping on snow. Strangely enough, the horse that was just throwing a wild tantrum instantly calmed down. Upon seeing the grass in my hand, it lowered its head and docilely ate the grass from my palm. The hostility in its eyes largely dissipated, and it even gently nudged the back of my hand with its head, as if seeking affection. I gently stroked its mane, then looked up at the livid face of Pei Yu, and said calmly, "Since it doesn't recognize you, it's safer for you to take a palanquin from now on, second brother. Don't come near the stables again. If you really get injured by it, the loss won't be worth the gain." Pei Yu gritted his teeth, bowed stiffly, and losing all desire to stay, turned and left in a huff. He even forgot to pick up his broken riding crop. Watching his retreating figure, the smile on my lips deepened. This was just a minor punishment. The truly exciting part was yet to come. As my due date approached, my mother, the Grand Princess, sent 4 experienced midwives early on to move into the estate. They stayed in Hengwu courtyard, on standby at all times. Her Majesty the Empress also dispatched a deputy director and 2 capable imperial physicians from the imperial hospital to stay in a side courtyard, ensuring my delivery would be completely safe. Everyone in the Marquis estate became incredibly cautious because of the child in my womb. They even walked with light footsteps. Finally, on a day with endless autumn rain, I went into labor. The abdominal pains came in tighter and tighter waves, hurting so much I was drenched in cold sweat, nearly fainting. The 4 midwives stayed by my side, constantly guiding me to push. The imperial physicians were also on hand, ready to handle any emergencies. I suffered for a full 24 hours, from dawn until late at night. Just when I felt I couldn't hold on any longer, a loud, clear baby's cry pierced the silence of the estate. He's born. It's a big, plump boy. The midwife held the flushed newborn, reporting the news with a beaming smile. I lay paralyzed on the bed, completely drained of strength. But as I looked at that tiny infant, my eyes were filled with tenderness. My son, the rightful eldest legitimate grandson of the Yongning Marquis estate. When the news reached the palace, my uncle, the emperor, was overjoyed. Royal rewards flowed into the estate like water. Gold, silver, and jewels. Silks and satins. Rare medicinal herbs. They were innumerable. Even the crown prince sent a solid gold longevity lock. I knew in my heart that the emperor was backing me up, silently warning everyone else in the estate not to plot against me and my child. Otherwise, they would make an enemy of the royal family. We smoothly passed the baby's first month. His features had filled out nicely. Fair and chubby. He was incredibly adorable. His features were 70% similar to Pei Jin's, but with an added touch of softness. On this day, Shu came in holding a red sandalwood box, and reported, "Your Highness, the 3rd young master sent someone to deliver this, saying it's a 1-month gift for his nephew." I raised an eyebrow, and had Shu open the box. Inside lay a mutton fat jade longevity lock, exquisitely carved. It was quite a fine piece, but underneath the lock was a gold-sprinkled note, with 4 large characters written on it. "May you live 100 years. I picked up the note, and held it to the candlelight to closely examine the bold, flowing handwriting. The strokes were sharp and majestic. It was exactly Pei Jin's usual calligraphy style. It didn't look anything like Pei Yu's delicate and neat regular script. Looking at that handwriting, I laughed so hard I nearly knocked over my teacup. Pei Jin must have been so anxious that he forgot he is now Pei Yu, and needed to imitate Pei Yu's handwriting. With such carelessness, how could he achieve anything great? The next day, during my routine visit to the main courtyard, I purposely folded that gold-sprinkled note, and handed it to mother-in-law, saying with a smile, "Look, mother, second brother's handwriting is gaining more of his older brother's character. The strokes are sharp, looking 70% similar to the heir's handwriting. They truly are blood-related brothers. Even their handwriting is so alike." Mother-in-law took the note, and upon seeing the handwriting, her expression instantly changed. She gently stroked the paper with her fingertips, a flash of doubt and scrutiny in her eyes. Bayuro, sitting nearby, trembled so violently that the teacup in her hand, clang, slammed against the table. The cherry-red tea splashed out, soaking the hem of her apricot skirt. She didn't even notice, her eyes filled with sheer panic. Pei Yu stood at the side, his face as pale as paper. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. He opened his mouth, but couldn't utter a single word. Cold sweat ran down his temples, dampening his collar. He never expected that a momentary lapse in attention would expose him through his handwriting. They are blood-related brothers after all. Even their handwriting is so alike. Mother-in-law gave 2 dry laughs, set the gold-sprinkled note aside, and deliberately changed the subject. But as her sharp eyes swept over Pei Yu's trembling fingers, the suspicion in them only deepened. "It's just that you are used to hate practicing calligraphy the most, and always wrote in delicate, neat regular script. He's certainly changed his temper now, unexpectedly practicing such sharp calligraphy. Perhaps second brother misses his older brother, and is copying his handwriting to find some comfort," I said, feigning innocence. That one sentence left everyone speechless. Just as we were talking, a maid walked in. She curtsied and reported, "Your Highness, the madam said she wants to see the young master, and asked me to invite your highness over." I was in Hengwu courtyard reviewing the estate's ledgers, entering Pei Jin's private stash into the accounts one by one. Shu came in carrying the swaddled infant to report. The child had just turned 1 month old. The child had just turned 1 month old, his cheeks as pink as March peach blossoms, his skin delicate, and his eyes round, and incredibly adorable. He was growing to look more and more like his father, Pei Jin, but his eyes were much purer than Pei Jin's. I adjusted my collar, took the child, held him in my arms, and said calmly, "It's about time I went to pay my respects to mother anyway." Let's go. Carrying the child, I walked to the corridor of the main courtyard. Before entering, I heard suppressed sobbing from inside, along with mother-in-law's low sighs. I slowed my steps and looked through the carved lattice window. I saw Pei-yu kneeling at mother-in-law's feet, his forehead pressed against the cold flagstone floor. His shoulders shook violently, crying his heart out. Mother, I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please help me win back Joey's heart. I beg you. Mother-in-law sat above him, gripping her prayer beads until they cracked. Finally, she smashed them fiercely onto Pei-yu's back, and angrily yelled, "You bastard! Now you know you were wrong? When you were putting on this act, why didn't you consider the consequences? Do you know that by doing this, you not only ruined Yor, and ruined by Euro, but you also ruined Joey, and ruined the Marquis estate? Now that Joey has given birth to Jeaner's child, you still want to win back her heart? That is purely wishful thinking." I deliberately walked heavily on the flagstone path, making crisp sounds with my footsteps. The commotion inside stopped instantly. As I entered, Pei-yu had already hastily stood up. His eyes were red, with wet tear tracks still on his face. He purposely turned his back to me, straightening his clothes. Mother-in-law also reined in her anger, forced a smile, and waved at me. "Joey is here. Come quickly. Let grandmother hold my good grandson." I walked over with the baby and handed him to mother-in-law. She carefully took the child, her face full of affection. She gently teased him, murmuring softly, "Good boy. So cute. Quick, say daddy." Saying this, she actually gestured for Pei-yu to come closer. A flash of anticipation crossed Pei-yu's eyes, and he immediately leaned in, reaching out a finger to gently touch the baby's cheek. Right before his finger could touch my child, all the blood in my body rushed to my head. I snatched the child back from mother-in-law's arms, shielding him in my embrace. I glared ice-cold at Pei-yu and scolded sharply, "Second brother-in-law, you are quite out of line. My husband may be dead, but he is still this child's biological father, the heir of this Marquis estate. Not just anyone can be his father. Do you even deserve to?" Pei-yu's hand hung in midair. He stood completely frozen. The anticipation on his face instantly turned into awkward embarrassment. The teacup in mother-in-law's hand also crashed to the floor with a clatter, shattering into pieces. Tea splashed everywhere. "Joey, you." Mother-in-law tried to speak, but was cut off by my icy glare. Pei-yu's Adam's apple bobbed. Fine cold sweat beaded on his forehead beneath his jade crown. He forced himself to explain, "Sister-in-law, you misunderstand. Brother passed away suddenly. The child has no father to guide him, which is truly pitiful. I merely wish to care for the child on brother's behalf, so he won't lack a father's love." What a touching display of brotherhood. What a noble excuse to care for the child. I sneered, my voice bone-chilling, carrying a biting coldness. "Your brother's bones aren't even cold." Yet someone was right behind his morning hall, making merry with his sister-in-law, calling for water 3 times in one night. With such morals, how could you possibly guide my son? How are you fit to be his father? My words were piercing, mercilessly exposing his dark secrets. "Joey," mother-in-law sharply reprimanded me. Her face had turned pale. She was afraid I'd say something even worse, ruining the Marquis estate's reputation if word got out. Pei-yu's handsome face flushed bright red. His fingers cracked as he clenched them in his sleeves. His eyes were full of shame and fury. Yet he had no way to refute it, because everything I said was the absolute truth. Just then, mother-in-law suddenly clutched her chest. She swayed and fell backward. The maids cried out and swarmed over, scrambling to support her. I watched coldly, observing this little performance, my heart completely undisturbed. Pei-jin wanted to use her illness to soften my heart, but he forgot. I, Lin Joey, am by no means a soft-hearted person. Pei-yu scrambled to help mother-in-law, but amidst the chaos, he took advantage of the distraction and grabbed my sleeve. He lowered his voice, his tone filled with viciousness and threat. "Lin Joey, will you only be satisfied when you've driven this family to death?" I threw off his hand and deliberately raised my voice. "What are you saying, second brother? This is mother's old ailment. Quick, send for the imperial physician." I turned to Shu and said, "Go fetch the Onglong Huang pill, gifted by Her Majesty the Empress." Pei-yu's eyes instantly changed. That pill was an imperial gift. If mother-in-law used it, by tomorrow, the entire capital would know that a major incident occurred here. "No, there's no need." Mother-in-law suddenly caught her breath. "It's an old ailment. I'll be fine after a rest." I turned and left with my child, leaving behind a meaningful remark. "Rest assured, mother, I will raise the heir well, and teach him who his true family is." Hearing the sound of porcelain shattering inside, a cold sneer crept up my lips. Since Pei Jin was so desperate to reclaim his position as heir, then I should make him understand. Some things, once lost, can never be taken back. Shu whispered in my ear. The madam secretly pinched her own philtrum just now. Returning to Hengwu courtyard, I had people secretly monitor Bai Yuro's courtyard. Your Highness, the third young madam is pregnant. When Shu lifted the curtain, I was embroidering tiger head shoes for my child. The silver needle paused at my fingertips, pricking out a drop of blood. He actually managed to get her pregnant during morning. The good news from Tingyi Pavilion sprouted wings, spreading across the estate in less than half a day. When I went to the main courtyard to pay my respects, Bai Yuro was leaning against Pei Yu, her delicate fingers caressing her flat stomach. Congratulations, second brother. I smiled brighter than the begonias outside. Now mother can finally rest easy. Mother-in-law was indeed beaming, repeatedly ordering the kitchen to stew tonics. However, announcing a pregnancy during morning will inevitably invite gossip about our estate. Mother-in-law's smile instantly froze. Bai Yuro's face turned pale. Why must you be so aggressive, sister-in-law? He smiled, but his eyes were ice cold. I sneered. They realized they could have more than one child. Pei Jin played a brilliant move, but unfortunately, he miscalculated one thing. At the third watch of the night, I draped a cloak over my shoulders, taking a small enamel box from a hidden compartment. Moonlight filtered through the window, illuminating the glowing powder inside. Your Highness, are you really? Shu's voice trembled. Don't worry. I pinched the powder and chuckled. It's just enough to make our young master mildly ill. 3 days later, the child indeed developed a high fever. I submitted a token to the palace overnight. The deputy director rushed over with 2 physicians. While the estate was in utter chaos, I personally led a search of the wet nurse's room. In a hidden compartment by her bed, we indeed found a porcelain vial of poison. I tucked the vial into my sleeve, a flash of coldness in my eyes. Speak. Who ordered you to harm your master? The wet nurse slumped, trembling like a leaf. The second young master said, if the young master is gone, his son would be. The gasps of the imperial physicians were exceptionally clear. With red eyes, I handed the confession to the Marchioness. She fainted immediately after reading it. 3 days later was the anniversary of Pei Jin's faked death. Over this past year, I had been waiting for this exact opportunity, not only to seek justice for the deceased Pei Yu, but to completely eradicate this hidden danger. Now the evidence was irrefutable. It was time to close the net. The anniversary finally arrived. The estate held a memorial service. I purposely invited my mother to attend, along with half the nobility of the capital. Bai Yuro, dressed in plain clothes, followed. Pei Yu. Behind. Her lower abdomen was already slightly showing. Today, besides mourning my late husband, I stood in the center of the hall, my voice clear and bright. I also invite you all to bear witness. As soon as I said this, the entire hall was shocked. Pei Yu's wine cup clattered to the ground. Bai Yuro's face turned deathly pale. Mother-in-law was about to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. A year ago, someone faked his death and deceived the world. I slowly stood up and took the small porcelain vial from my sleeve. And someone even dared to plot against royal blood. Joey. You. Pei Yu. Jumped to his feet, a flash of panic in his eyes. Pei Jin. Your little play is over. I smiled coldly. Did you think I didn't know about your faked death? Or about you bribing the wet nurse to use poison? Shu brought forth a red sandalwood box. Inside lay the wet nurse's signed confession. And Pei Jin's private seal. This is impossible. Jin's seal was clearly. The hall erupted in an uproar. Pei Jin's face looked like death. Ah, Joey. Listen to my explanation. Guards. Arrest this traitor who deceived the emperor. Before my words even faded, the sound of gongs clearing the way echoed outside. Imperial guards filed in. The leading eunuch unfurled a bright yellow imperial edict. By the grace of heaven, the emperor decrees, Pei Jin, heir of Yongning Marquis, has committed treason. He is hereby stripped of his title and exiled 3,000 miles away. The emperor's furious edict arrived even faster than expected. Bai Yuro knelt before mother-in-law, crying and pleading, kowtowing until her forehead bled. Mother. She tugged at the Marchioness's hem. I beg you. Please, for the sake of the child. Jean, he. Shut up. Shut up. The Marchioness threw her off. How dare you? Old madam. Meyer suddenly rushed out and knelt down. This servant has an important matter to report. She shook open an erotic painting. The 2 intimately intertwined figures in it were shockingly Bai Yuro and a mansion guard. The bastard in this wench's belly, Meyer sneered, belongs to the captain of the guards. Bai Yuro lunged at Meyer like a madwoman, but was swiftly pinned down by the older servants. Mother-in-law trembled with absolute fury. Force feed her the medicine. 3 days later, News of Bayuro's death by illness spread across the estate. I sat in the main hall of Hengwu courtyard, watching my in-laws personally place the heir's golden seal on my son's swaddle. Your Highness, Meyer knelt beneath the steps. Please let this servant leave the estate. I rubbed my jade Rui scepter. You have rendered a great merit. This servant dares not claim credit. Her forehead touched the blue bricks. I only beg for my life. I suddenly remembered her under the osmanthus tree that day. Her golden hairpin swaying and clinking. Go. I tossed her a pouch of gold leaves, and never returned to the capital. As dusk gathered, Shu asked if I wanted to see Pei Jin one last time. I shook my head, turned, and picked up my babbling child. Outside the window, the autumn rain pattered, knocking down the courtyard full of begonias. As the sound of rain grew denser, Shu quietly came in to add charcoal. The silver thread charcoal crackled in the golden laid brazier, making the golden seal in my hand shine even brighter. Your Highness, the Marquis sent someone to ask, will the ancestral shrine be open tomorrow as usual? My fingertips brushed over the fierce Swanee beast on the seal. Yes. I looked up and caught a glimpse of myself in the bronze mirror. The tassels of my golden phoenix hairpin swayed gently. Have the tailoring room make the heir's ceremonial robes overnight. Just as Shu was about to withdraw, I suddenly remembered something. Wait. Go to the storeroom and fetch the jade longevity lock. The one from the recent tributes. Does your Highness want the heir to wear it into the shrine? I gazed at the begonias knocked down by the rain outside. Incense smoke curled through the ancestral shrine. My in-laws were already seated at the head. When I stepped over the threshold with my child in my arms, the elders' murmurs abruptly stopped. The Marquis personally recorded the heir's name into the royal genealogy book. Mother-in-law tied the family heirloom jade pendant around the child's waist. Just as the ceremony finished, a sudden commotion erupted outside. The steward rushed in, panicking. My lord, an envoy from the palace is here. The decree-reading eunuch unfurled the bright yellow silk, and everyone in the room dropped to their knees. It turned out my uncle, the emperor, not only approved the petition for my child to inherit the title, but also granted him the title of Lord of Chang'an. This was an honor reserved only for princes. As I kowtowed in gratitude, I heard my parents-in-law gasp quietly, taking the edict. Its heavy weight made me dazed for a moment. On the way back to my courtyard, Shu whispered to me that he was escorted out of the city before dawn. I nodded. Suddenly, I saw Meyer standing by the side gate with a bundle. She curtsied to me from afar, wearing plain clothes and a wooden hairpin. She had lost all her former glamour. I signaled the guards to let her pass. She took one last look at the estate's vermilion doors, and got into the carriage without looking back. That night, I had a dream. I dreamed of Pei Jin standing in the snow in shackles, while Bayuro, dressed in red, waved to him from under a plum blossom tree. When I woke up, the pillow was cold. Outside the window, the waning moon hung like a hook. 3 days later, while sorting through Pei Jin's old belongings, Shu found a journal at the bottom of a chest. Inside, it detailed every secret rendezvous he had with Bayuro. But on the last page, it read, "The sachet Joey gave me today has crooked stitches." I sneered and tossed the journal into the brazier. The flames instantly shot up. The character U was barely visible in the ashes, before being torn to shreds by the wind. Soon, it was the child's 100-day banquet. My mother, the Grand Princess, brought gifts from various estates, arriving in a grand procession. During the banquet, someone brought up Pei Jin, saying he tried to escape on the way to exile, and the guards broke his legs. Serves him right. My mother spat disdainfully. She turned to tease the baby. Our little Lord of Chang'an is 10,000 times better than that scumbag. I smiled and poured wine for the guests. From the corner of my eye, I saw mother-in-law secretly wiping her tears. Late at night, when the guests had dispersed, she suddenly grabbed my hand. "Joey, I have wronged you. You are being too harsh on yourself, mother." I held her trembling hand in return. "We are all family." She nodded through her tear-blurred eyes, unaware of the handkerchief I gripped tightly in my sleeve. Embroidered on it with gold thread was the character Jean. He had personally pinned it to my collar on our wedding day. Autumn passed and winter came. When the first snow fell, Shu said the Marquis had fallen ill. The imperial physician shook his head repeatedly after checking his pulse. I personally served him his medicine, but secretly omitted the ginseng from the prescription. On the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, news of the Marquis's death shocked the capital. Dressed in mourning white, I knelt before the altar, listening to the Ministry of Rights official read the posthumous edict. When the words "the Lord of Chang'an shall inherit the Yongning Marquis title" were spoken, the child suddenly giggled in the wet nurse's arms. The guests in the hall looked at each other in dismay. Only I looked at the fierce soul-guarding beast on the coffin, and gently curled my lips into a smile.